Hello everyone, Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me today, it's Alasdair Gold. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well, and Happy New Year to everyone out there. And hopefully it's Happy New Year. we'll find out what Saturday brings in a very tough game. But it's an interesting 2024. Let's put it that way. There's been highs and lows in the world of Tottenham Hotspur, and thankfully people have stuck with us on the podcast, which has been great. We found out, didn't we, this week that we've had, I think it's 2.5 million downloads across podcast platforms, and some of that as well, I think YouTube, the people that watch on there as well. But yeah, I mean, that's remarkable. That's brilliant. It's so cool. It's lovely that people kind of sharing the delight and sharing the misery as well.
So we offer, 5 million in 2025 or something like that?
Who knows what happens at Spurs? There's always something to talk about, isn't there? As it is this week again.
Yeah, it's just never straightforward. I think everyone will just have the fingers crossed for a rather smooth 2025, but the way 2024 ended, absolutely no chance of that happening at all. And going to be a very tough game on Saturday lunchtime against Newcastle United, who are banging form at the moment. I think won the last 4 in the Premier League, scored 13 goals, not even conceded in those matches as well. So, I mean, go back a year, Tottenham beat Newcastle 4-1. That just seems like a lifetime ago now, that.
Oh, it does. It does. They're like probably one of the worst teams to play right now. They're absolutely flying again. And Isak's scoring goals galore. Didn't he score more goals than anyone else in December, I think?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Just what you want with a defence that's got an 18-year-old midfielder in it and kind of a patched up young Romanian centre back as well. It's just and a makeshift left back now we're going to have as well out there on Saturday. So it's like the worst possible time really to play Newcastle, and there's a possibility. Obviously, we'll talk about players that have kind of come back into training, but there's a possibility they could have 10 players missing for Saturday's game. And we were talking about this earlier. That's not even including around this time of year. I think we've seen it with Arsenal. This is the kind of year when all the clubs go through there's a bout of sickness going through the club. People have got seasonal flu and all this sort of stuff. So this is Spurs. There's no way that's not going to affect them as well. So I wouldn't be stunned if we hear something from Spurs at some point this winter that there's been another kind of thing that's gone through the camp. It's just Tottenham, isn't it? It's just crazy right now.
Yeah, before we get on to the Newcastle game, it's January. January transfer window's open now, 2nd day of January. I mean, where are all these new signings?
Well, you joke, but Spurs needed them. I do feel like they've missed a bit of a trick. I think they needed people in this week. I think even if it was just one, it's one of those where I get that January is the more difficult window. Absolutely. I understand that. And I do believe there's probably going to be a real whiff of desperation about Spurs right now because everyone can see how few available players they've got. But I think, bearing in mind Johan Lange and Postecoglou have been having meetings, in recent weeks, you would have hoped that they might have got something to the stage where it could have been ready to go. I know transfers probably aren't that simplistic. I know that's probably an outsider view of looking at it. But yeah, Postecoglou really could have done with an extra face this week.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's quite clear about a month ago that reinforcements needed to happen straight away. And I mean, Spurs traditionally, January transfer market, late movers. Last year, bit different. Radu Dragusin and Timo Werner coming in pretty early on, probably around the 2nd week of January. But given Tottenham's situation, that the need plays in through the door ASAP. And I mean, they could be in a situation where it's that bad, just recall some of the loan players just to help bolster the numbers. But if they were going to do that, then surely those players would already be back at the club. Because, I mean, last December, Spurs announced Dane Scarlett was coming back, I think this was ahead of the January transfer window just because he had limited game time at Ipswich. But no, that's not been the case. Because I mean, you could have really looked at someone like Ashley Phillips, someone who can help out at centre back. But with Stoke playing yesterday on New Year's Day, if you really wanted him back, surely he would have been back at Spurs, because you can't risk playing him in a game on New Year's Day, because you know Tottenham's luck at the moment, he'll go and pick up an injury.
Do you think Ange rates him? I know it's a very blunt question, but I don't know. I just feel like he never really got much of a look in beforehand. I know he's very young, but I don't know.
I mean, there was an opportunity to play him last November when Romero and Van der Ven were out, but instead Emerson and Ben Davies came into the team at centre back. Did he really play much in pre-season?
No,
I don't think he did he? But he's one of these where he's still such a young lad, limited senior experience under his belt. This was even before his move to Spurs, but did really well at Plymouth last year, seems to have made a mark at Stoke. He's now going to be working under his third manager of the season with Mark Robbins taking over there. I think it's just one of these where he needs to get the football under his belt first. But the thing is, he's going to come back in the summer. You're probably going to have Romero and Van der Ven. Hopefully will be fit at some point soon. Potential new centre-backs coming in. Luka Vuskovic. So where exactly is he going to get this game time? And I mean, I said to you before we started the pod, even if he comes back in January, I still think Ange would start Archie Gray over him, because I think Gray's done well at centre-back.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's one of these where you need to, add it up. Is it worth recalling him and then potentially not even playing at all? Similar to Dane when he came back last season, a few games here and there. Because if he plays one game for Spurs, he can't go anywhere else in January.
Absolutely, the 3-club rule, you can't do it. Yeah, I agree. No, I think, it, like you said, it would have been done by now. Surely, if he was coming back, the only other way is if they just cannot settle on a centre back or get someone that they actually think will fit the system, and they bring him back because he was, it's clearly not the plan A. Otherwise, like you say, he would have been back by now. I've just kind of got that sense. I just kind of never felt like they've pushed to kind of have him getting minutes here and there. I mean, even when he first arrived, he was just on the bench. He wasn't coming on at any point, even when games there were positions where he could have come on just to get those minutes and kind of get an experience out there. I'm trying to remember. I feel like pre-season maybe there was an injury that stopped him at the beginning, but yeah, either way. I don't know whether he is he. I was about to say, is he a ball playing centre back? Is he going to fit that side of things? But why would you sign him if he wasn't? It's like a bit mad, isn't it? I don't know. It's the way Tottenham works sometimes. Sometimes you feel like they sign players that they know will be maybe good for the long-term future of the club, but maybe don't fit the immediate regime, so they kind of farm them out for a while.
Yeah, that's probably the right thing. I think going on what people have said at Plymouth, he's decent on the ball. He just seems like the typical Ange Postecoglou centre-back, really. But as you mentioned, we've just not seen it, even minutes here and there. But I mean, you can look at his age, but at the end of the day, if you're good enough, you're old enough, really.
Yeah, it's true.
So, and I think as well, what we were mentioning before the Wolves game the other day, if Dragusin was out, who would you put at centre-back? You had Bissouma, maybe push Bentancur back there, bit more height, not as rash as Bissouma. But then the question was, well, you've got Alfie Dorrington on the books. If he's not gone to play when literally every fully fit every senior centre-back is out in the club's hour of need, when exactly is he going to play?
Yeah, I do wonder whether there's a fitness element with Alfie Dorrington as well. Obviously had hamstring surgery at the end of last season. He's really hasn't played much for the under-21s this season. He's only played about 4 or 5 games, something like that. there hasn't been many. I can't imagine fitness-wise he'd be in a position where you're going to get a full game out of him, let's say, maybe even an hour, I don't know. But yeah, I am surprised he's only got those 13 minutes at Southampton. That's it, really. You would have thought there'd be opportunities. This is kind of why playing him in European games, things like that, which has helped people like Archie Gray and Lucas Berraval. Why hasn't someone like Alfie Dorrington been given those minutes as well to help him? Again, I just wonder whether Postecoglou doesn't rate him highly enough, which is interesting because there's certainly a feeling within Spurs that he's, got something about him. Again, maybe he needs to go away, get some minutes under his belt to come back and get the time that maybe some people think he deserves at Spurs. But yeah, it surprised me that exactly that I guess another element to the Alfie Dorrington thing is, would you play Alfie Dorrington alongside Archie Gray, an 18-year-old kind of thing? I can get that. To have a 19-year-old that's never played more than 13 minutes at the end of a first team game alongside a 18-year-old midfielder in the central defence, it probably is asking for trouble, but I can understand why people would look for a centre-back to play as a centre-back.
Yeah, I think for me, if you're short at the back and you've got a youngster who has played as a centre-back coming through the academy, surely he's better there than putting a midfielder who's never played in the position there. It just doesn't make sense to me. That's just square pegs, round holes. But thankfully, it didn't come to that predicament the other day because Dragusin was fit.
Yeah.
But if it does come to it, yeah, this is the thing then. What actually is going to happen if we are in this scenario and there's no new centre-back by then?
They have to bring someone in. They just do. Whether it's whether it's a loan signing and it's maybe not, I think he doesn't like this word, Postecoglou, compromise, but I do think he might have to compromise this window in terms of just getting bodies in at times. They might not be 100% ideal for his system, but I wonder if they're just looking at some loan signings just to see out the rest of the season and give them some cover. So at least the players that do suit his system can at least get some rest in some games and they're not dropping like flies because they're being overplayed. What do you think? What positions do you think he needs in this January window? I know January is not normally a busy window, but I think for a few clubs it's going to have to be this month. And I think Spurs are one of them.
Yeah, centre-back for me is priority. So short there at the moment. Left back, because Destiny Udogie is now facing about 2 months on the sidelines with a hamstring injury. Not the greatest news all from the Tottenham perspective. It's just very much, when it rains, it pours at Tottenham. Yep. Everything happens at once. I think a new attacker needs to come in, whether that's someone who can play out wide and maybe through the middle as well. I know someone maybe point to a goalkeeper. If you can get the right person, then do so. But I think there's other positions that are a priority over the goalkeeper right now. And then, I don't know, whoever else is available, I suppose.
Essentially a team. Yeah. Honestly, it is the first time I've ever kind of looked in a January window and thought you could probably bring in someone in every department of the squad and you'd need them. That's how kind of messed up the squad is right now. And look, you and I spoke about this back in the summer window when we were discussing the transfer window, that other than the fact that we would like a couple more ready-made players in there, one of our issues was they didn't really fix the left side of the defence, being the centre-back and left-back. And it's absolutely come back to bite them, I feel, with the left-back scenario particularly. Udogie's played the fourth most minutes this season. It's something like 1,800 minutes he's had to play. And his game, for me, I know Porro does a lot of running, but I feel like Udogie's game is even more because he's more like an overlapping fullback, whereas Porro maybe pings the ball in from a bit deeper. So it was always a position that they were going to need someone. And let's be completely honest, Jed Spence was not he's our left-back cover to begin the season. He wasn't. He's become it, and he's doing very well for someone that hasn't played much football. But he was never going to be the definite left-back cover. He was going to be more the Porro cover with Archie Gray. And it's kind of, we're in this situation now where Jed Spence is going to have to play a run of games again, unless he uses Sergio Reguilon, which is probably against everything he probably wanted to do, because Reguilon shouldn't really be at the club anymore from either party's view on it. But for me, from what I understand, Spurs are kind of looking at potentially new centre back, new left back. In an ideal world, I wonder if they could find someone that covers both of those positions that would be perfect for them. A bit like, I guess, Mickey van der Ven does, and Mickey van der Ven, another hamstring. And then also potentially looking at midfielders, whether that's attacking or not. I still feel they'll need a number 6 at some point. I still am not entirely certain that Bentancur or Bissouma are the ideal Postecoglou number 6. But then also in that situation, you've got the likes of Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall in the future, but that you need someone in the meantime. I think Postecoglou said to me a couple of weeks back that if the attacking options remain how they are, yes, he'll need another attacker. And let's be honest, Odegaard, I know we've had images of him back on the grass, but it's still going to be a while till he's back. That was even Postecoglou said he's going to miss a large chunk of the season with that hamstring problem. And Richarlison, we just don't know. It's just we can kind of be happy that he's on his way back and involved in training this week. Hopefully, he was meant to be anyway. But you don't know how his body's going to hold up and what holds next for him because of what's happened in the past. So, yeah, another attacker could well be on the cards. And then there is the goalkeeper situation. And I think the more I've watched of Fraser Forster in recent weeks, I think he started off really well. I think his shot stopping on the whole is pretty good. I don't actually think he's as bad with his feet as people make out, but I do think he panics sometimes under the press. And that is also about having a defence in front of him that are a bit makeshift and don't present the options for him that he needs. But I feel with him, the compromise you have to do is he's not a speedy man off his line like Vicario is. That really does compromise the high line even more so with the players missing as well. So I kind of feel like if they could either get a short-term goalkeeper in on loan for the next however long Vicario's out for, obviously you'd have him to the end of the season anyway, or you bring in someone that you were thinking of maybe trying to get in the summer who would be a competitor for Vicario going forward, and you get them in now. I genuinely think if Spurs could get 3 or 4 in this window, they would do it. Whether that's actually doable or not is another thing in January, but they just need the bodies. It's mad what's happened to that squad.
Yeah, the thing what makes things a lot trickier as well is everyone can now see how desperate Spurs are.
100%.
So then you're in this position where they'll just be asking for even more money if you're going to go and try buy players on a permanent basis rather than get loan deals.
I mean, you've got to pay it. You've got to pay it, haven't you?
Exactly.
If you're in this position, fix it.
100%. I mean, in terms of the left back position, is it maybe worth trying to get Chilwell on loan from Chelsea? He's surplus to requirements.
Chelsea do normally deal with Spurs. Not.
No, they don't. But I mean, is Todd Boehly now in charge? Different era at Chelsea.
Yeah, but I don't get the impression that they were desperate to sell Gallagher to Spurs. It always felt like he was going to go abroad in the summer, kind of more so. I don't think. I know what you mean. I absolutely understand. It's a change in regime there, but I still think there's an understanding of how that would look to the Chelsea fan base if he went to Spurs and did well. I just feel like they're two clubs that just don't really deal with each other.
Chelsea and Arsenal do deals all the time.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
I know. So strange.
Yeah. Maybe because Arsenal give them lots of money to do so, whereas Spurs don't. That's probably the different factor.
Yes, I mean, it's going to be... You probably got to be limited in terms of your left backs. I didn't like Anthony Robinson at Fulham's quality and Kirkers at Bournemouth, but they're going to cost so much money.
And you're not getting them in January, are you? No. Let's be honest.
Unless you're paying totally over the odds, which, let's be honest, isn't going to happen.
They liked, I remember, I think one of the ones they were linked with was Dorgu. Was it Patrick Dorgu at Lecce last summer? But nobody really moved for him. And I think he's another base player to add to the many, many, many that Spurs are linked with. But he signed a new contract in October, so I don't know whether that puts him off the market or not. I think he's been playing as a right winger for some of this season, actually. I think he's one of those very versatile one that plays on either side. But yeah, certainly he's a good player. Maybe a little bit suspect defensively at the moment. He's only 20 years old, but yeah, I just wondered whether he's one they go back to, but whether that would have to be the summer if they do. But yeah, I feel like this transfer window, the names that are going to suddenly come out are going to surprise us all. I think there's going to be a lot of, well, we just need to get bodies in, like I said. And I think Postecoglou said himself, didn't he? I think it was one of the press conferences that I was missed, and I think maybe you were there. Didn't he say something about probably it isn't going to be a window where we're going to improve the first 11. It's going to be more about putting squad bodies in there, as it were.
Yeah, I think it was something along those lines. What he also said, which was interesting, was the new European format makes things different now because you've still got a couple of European games. So whereas clubs in previous Januaries, when the Champions League, Europa League would end in December and then start again in February with the knockout phases, clubs now are probably going to hold on to the players rather than let them go.
And there's no summer tournaments, are there, as well? So players aren't like, I've got to play minutes, I've got to leave to go to this club because I need minutes to get into my national squad kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there's probably got to be the Nations League, but I mean, that's certainly no World Cup or Euros or Copa America, is it?
Certainly not, no.
In terms of another couple of Tottenham deals, I know you reported the other day in your loan roundup, there's a bit of interest in Josh Keeley and Jamie Donnelly, who are doing really, really well now at Leyton Orient.
Yeah, they're doing fantastically. I mean, Josh Keeley's kind of had this lovely run in the team where he's got into the team, and I think he broke the record at Orient for 7 consecutive clean sheets. Josh Keeley, so that's fantastic. For Jamie Donnelly, it's taken a little bit longer. I'd say he was there or thereabouts at the start of the season, and then he just went through this long, kind of really fallow period, didn't he, where he just couldn't get into the squad and wasn't even on the bench for some games. And now he's not only in the team, but he is flying. He is absolutely smashing it right now. I think he scored in 3 of his last 4 games. Last night scored an absolute beauty of a free kick. I think he meant it, didn't he? I don't think it's a swinging cross. I think he's having a go for the top corner. He's that kind of player. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah, I think he's gone for it. He's not one of these where it looks like he's totally overhit it and it's gone in. I think he's definitely aiming for the far post. I think that's 3 goals now at Leyton Orient, a couple of assists as well. And rewind the clock back a month and you're thinking Spurs are going to have to recall him here. So he's not even playing. He's not even getting in the matchday squad. And I think it just shows that a situation can just turn in an instance, really. And, fair credit to him. He's put in the work, got into the team, and Richie Wellens, the manager, has heaped praise on him for doing so. And Leyton Orient, I think, are benefiting from having Jamie in the team because since he came back into the side in the league at the start of December, I think they've won 6 or 7. They're only a few points off the playoff places now.
Yeah, no, they're flying. He did a weird interview the other day, Richie Wellens, about him. He was talking about, I think he was asked the question, could they bring him in permanently? Like some of the loan players, could they bring him in permanently? And he kind of like remarked about his wages. He's like, I wish I was on the wages that Jamie Donnelly was on or something. It was a bit like, he's like a teenager. It was like I just kind of thought it was a really weird way to go about it. But anyway, yeah, he's getting the matches, and it's a really important decision now because there is interest in them in both Keeley and Donnelly from like clubs in the Championship and clubs kind of maybe more higher up, I guess, in the pyramid. But yeah, it's like, do you look at the period before and think, well, he could find himself out of the team again quite easily here? Or do you think, well, he's absolutely fine? And I don't get the sense that Jamie Donnelly's ever been unhappy at Orient. I think he's really enjoyed the experience, and certainly that seems to be the vibe you kind of get from the whole loan that he's had there. It's a big risk, isn't it? You could easily go, let's bump him up to the Championship because he's smashing it in League One now and he looks too good for that level, all that sort of stuff. And he could go to Championship and sit on the bench quite easily. That's no reflection on him. It could be that you pick the wrong club and there's too many in one position, or players come back from injury. Even like, remember when Jed Spence went to Rennes and he was going to play every single match. Was the thing, and then their right back came back, who was their captain, was it Traore, and he played every single game from that point on, and Jed went back to the bench and never played. So, yeah, it's a big risk, and I think especially with Josh Keeley, goalkeeper loans are so difficult. If you find somewhere where they're playing week in, week out, just leave him there, let him develop and play well, and yeah, they should have hopefully a really big season, and it'd be great to see him push Orient right up that table.
Yeah, for me, you just leave them where they are. They're playing football. There's no guarantee if they go elsewhere that they're going to play. We saw that last season with Alfie Devine, brilliant at Port Vale, scored a number of important goals. I think they went quite far in the Carabao Cup. Went to Plymouth, looked a really good move at the time because Ian Forster, someone who we'd worked with, I think at England under 19 and under 20 level, was in charge. Forster ended up getting the bullet after a couple of months. Devine in and out of the team. I think he finished the season well. I think Plymouth fans liked what they saw from him and they wanted to bring him back for the new season, but probably wasn't getting the minutes he wanted that he was certainly getting at Port Vale. So for me, it's a bit of a no-brainer. If they're playing, they're enjoying the football, keep him at the club, because first team minutes is more important than going up to a championship club and, you know, playing every now and then.
Absolutely.
That's the reason they've gone. That's the reason they've gone on loan, to get first team experience. So let them get it this season, and then next season, if Spurs want to let them go, then let them go to the championship then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like Ashley Phillips. It's exactly that, isn't it? If they're getting the development that you kind of want them to, kind of, even if it's difficult, you kind of got to let them do it. And even like with Josh Keeley, you could have brought him back as a goalkeeping option. You know, he's doing that well. He could have been good backup kind of thing, but also is it better that he plays? Just very quickly, Alfie Devine, you mentioned that he's having a terrific season with Westerlo as well. It's like they're a team that are probably not going to win every game, but he is so important to them. He's kind of got this free role, scored a lovely goal the other day. Him and Luka Vuskovic both scored terrific goals. Vuskovic more acrobatic, but certainly Devine's goal, he beautifully took a pass into his run, twisted, turned, hit it in the bottom corner. It's lovely. One question for you. One person that some people have been asking about potentially bringing back on loan, and it's not a young player developing or trying to develop, Manor Solomon. Would you bring him back? Because he's doing all right for Leeds right now.
He's doing very well for Leeds. Didn't have the best of starts because of the injuries, but he's gone in the team and seems to be making a real impact in the final third. Would they bring him back? Probably not at this moment in time. I mean, is he going to play if he comes back? This is the thing. There's a number of options out wide. Decky can play out wide. Brennan, Richie once he's fit. Sonny, Yang-Min Hook, if he's gone to, you know, force his way into Andrew's plans before the end of the season. I don't know, because I mean, Manor Solomon didn't really get much of a look in pre-season, did he?
No, this is true. I don't know how sharp he was. I don't know about that. To play devil's advocate, would he give you more than Timo Werner?
Probably on current form, yes.
Confidence-wise, I think he would right now.
Yeah. One to consider.
It is. I mean, we have to kind of touch on Timo Werner as well. It's one of those where everyone's like, send him back. We must reiterate that's not how these loans really work. Spurs would have to convince RB Leipzig to allow him to come back, and he is one of RB Leipzig's highest earners. There is no justification for Leipzig to say, oh yeah, send him back. No, we'll pay him. That's fine. It's not going to work like that. And also, be honest, it's another body out of the squad at a time when it's probably Spurs need as many as they can possibly get. You know, he actually almost came up with an assist on the Sunday, putting a great ball across that Solanke was like inches away from sliding into the net. But yeah, it's not quite as easy as send them back. I think someone told me on social media that Spurs should just rip up his contract the other day. I'm not sure it really works like that either. I get the frustration because he definitely, you know, is a player who can be very, very frustrating. But yeah, unfortunately, contracts, they're a bit more difficult.
What I would say with Solomon, if you bring him back, you're going to have to find space for him in the Europa League squad.
Why?
Because won't he be a foreign player?
I mean, more, I think this January window is going to be a case of just get players in, probably not registering them for Europe because you can't.
But then you could be in a situation where Solomon plays a handful of games at best in the Premier League. Maybe if you win the FA Cup, if Spurs, don't exit the competition next weekend at Tamworth.
Maybe. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I feel like with him, unlike the other young players, he's a more senior player that was brought in to play for Spurs. That was the point.
Yeah.
I know he's a free transfer, but he was brought in to play for Spurs. And for him, I kind of feel like if that is the case, that he has to come back and he comes in and out of the squad, and there's going to be more injuries. There's going to be more opportunities to play. I kind of feel like with him, he is the one that I would maybe say, yeah, no, I get that. I get why you'd bring him back. Be a bit selfish. It's not so much about him developing anymore. It's more about him wanting game time, but maybe it's more important what Spurs want. I don't know. I mean, he may want to. I don't know. I was about to say he may want to come back to Spurs, but he's probably enjoying himself at Leeds right now, so maybe not. He'd probably come back and get a hamstring injury anyway. So,
did you see the other day there was a link with Spurs and Harry Winks?
I did not see that.
Yeah. So
No
actually,
way.
like bring him back for a decent amount of money. So that would just be a farcical piece of business. Yeah.
I did not see that. I mean, I'm presuming there's a club trained idea behind that. Maybe I don't know with Europe, but I mean that would be weird. That would be really strange at this point.
Yeah, it's just totally bizarre. I think it just seems to be one of those pluck someone's name out. Yeah, a month ago, £32 million move or something.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I really liked Harry Winks. I thought, he kind of. I think his ankle was probably the biggest issue for him. His ankle kind of maybe stunted the development that he could have had at Spurs, but that's surely not going to happen ever.
It was from Spain, some Spanish outlet. £32 million move. Yeah.
That's weird. That's like us reporting on something, a Spanish club going for a Spanish player. That would be unusual. But yeah, I probably can't see that one happening. Cue him signing tomorrow.
Yes. In terms of other transfer deals, then outgoings, what can we expect? I mean, Spurs can't afford to lose anyone. I mean, look at Sergio Reguilon at the moment. Spurs need cover at left back. And the thing is, from his point of view, it's probably better if he leaves in the summer. He'll have the pick of clubs. His signing on fee will be bigger. If you're looking at it from a financial perspective, but
from his point of view, yes.
From a footballing perspective, he needs to leave in January.
Yes.
To play, to get his career back on track.
We've said that before, though, haven't we? About a few players. I kind of get the impression that, bearing in mind Postecoglou was a left back, he'd rather start himself than Sergio Reguilon. I mean, he kind of had to bring him on for Destiny the other day. Before that, he'd played like a minute this season, hadn't he? He came on. What was
Manchester
the one he did?
United in the cup.
That was it.
He came on for stoppage time. Yeah,
he did that Instagram post, didn't he? Mum, look, I played a football game or something. And it's like, I just feel like Reguilon didn't really want to be part, or it didn't seem like he wanted to be part of Spurs kind of going forward. Postecoglou didn't seem like he wanted Reguilon to be a part of Spurs going forward. And then they just had this awkward summer where just nothing came in that got the player out of the club. And then they had this, it was like, well, I suppose we might as well register him for the Premier League squad because there's space anyway. And he's there, but he's almost there as almost like a cheerleader at times, it feels. So I feel like if there's anyone that would leave, I think if Spurs got any kind of offer, they would go, Sergio, please, please. But like you say, whether he would want to go is an entirely different thing, because financially it probably doesn't make any sense to go right now for him unless Spurs did some kind of mutual thing to kind of get him off the books, as it were. And then, you bring in a left back to plug that position up with a left back and Spence, and then waiting for Udogie to come back, then maybe you're fine. But they can't really let him go unless they get someone coming through the door. I do understand that. I just don't think he suits the Postecoglou style anyway. I don't think he can come in field as an inverted fullback. I was about to say he's a bit dodgy or suspect defensively, but then I wouldn't say Udogie and Porro have kind of covered themselves in glory and defensively this season either. But yeah, I'd imagine he would be, out of any one of the senior players, probably the one that if they can get an offer, they would probably want to still get him out the door. Werner, like I say, there's other issues with that. And then you're kind of dipping down slightly into the young players, aren't you? I think Will Lancashire, there's a lot of interest in Championship clubs, League One clubs, League Two clubs as well. I think there's quite a few that would love it. I think there's a few clubs that would like to sign him permanently, but let's be honest, he's just signed a 5-year deal at Spurs, didn't he, at the end of last season? Scored his first goal for the club, made his Premier League debut. That would be absolutely mad for the club to entertain any permanent offer for him. But it doesn't seem like a loan move is really being considered right now because just, again, the lack of attacking bodies. And if you've only got Richarlison up there with his record as backup for Solanke, obviously you've got Son that can play there as well, but in a different way. You're probably not going to let Lancashire go at this moment in time. And then again, you're dipping down. I think Tyrese Hall, I think he'll get a loan move this month because it just hasn't worked for him. He was kind of there or thereabouts towards the end of last season. Pre-season didn't work particularly well for him. I can't remember. Was it at Hearts when he got subbed on and then subbed off again?
It was QPR.
QPR, that was it, QPR. I think he played for about 16 minutes of that game, and it kind of told you that Postecoglou just was not happy with whatever he was doing. He's been plugging away for the under-21s, but it feels like Callum Olasezzi's taken his place really as the midfielder to go to of the academy, and he's only 17. So yeah, I think there's a lot of interest in Tyrese from, again, across the Football League. So it's just about finding the right fit for him, really, where he'll go and play, because always reminds me of oh my goodness, his name's gone out of my head. Who went to Charlton and didn't play?
Niall John.
Niall John, that was it. Who's now in Portugal. Isn't he? Second division, yeah. He went to Charlton, and it was honestly one of the most horrendous loans I've ever seen given to a player. I don't know who decided that or how that worked, who made the final say, but my goodness, that was dreadful. So yeah, it's. I think that's kind of it. I just don't think you can let people go. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah. Quick change of subject now. Am I right in saying you got your loved ones the gift of NordVPN for Christmas?
I don't know where you were going with that. I thought it must be time for Nord, and I was like, okay. Let's say yes. Yes, I gave everyone in my family the gift of NordVPN for Christmas. What would be a better present than that? Because, as we know, it is the fastest VPN in the world, and that means no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. That might be one of my favorite segues you've ever done. That was superb.
I think I'm going to struggle to top it, to be honest.
I think that was superb. Yes, NordVPN. It would be a great gift for someone at Christmas because it's so useful in the many things you use it for. Whether that be going abroad and watching everything you would watch back in the UK, making your device think it's back home in the UK so you can do so, or whether it's being in the UK and using the device to think it's abroad and you can watch things that maybe you could only watch if you were abroad. And also book flights and things like that might be cheaper if your device thinks it's in the other country rather than in the UK. And there's also a security element to it as well, where it helps you stop those nasty people to a degree getting into your devices and taking things off of it. And on top of all of that, which, like you say, is the best Christmas gift you can really get, is that we have a discount off Nord's VPN plan. It's a bit late for Christmas, maybe a New Year's gift for 2025. You can go to nordvpn.com/goldguest, and our link will give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link, in case you missed it there, is in the podcast episode description box.
So we'll talk about Tottenham and what 2025 will bring to the football club. Hopefully, it'll be a bit more plain sailing in the months ahead. Spurs not in the greatest position in the Premier League table right now. 11th, the gap to the top 4, top 5 is increasing, and could even be bigger this weekend, depending how the Newcastle game goes. But Spurs do have a Carabao Cup semi-final coming up against Liverpool. First leg takes place next Wednesday at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Then start of February, they're at Anfield for the second leg. Got the FA Cup third round coming up against Tamworth, and then Spurs are in, I think, a decent position in the Europa League to finish in the top 8, but need to win away at Hoffenheim and then Elfsborg at home. What are you expecting then in the final few months of the season?
Oh. Something better, please. Is it wrong that I was kind of hoping there was some snow forecast for next week? And I was kind of hoping that maybe the first leg might be postponed. That's how kind of the situation is right now, because just Spurs players are dropping like flies. And this is the issue right now, is that Postecoglou just isn't being able to play the Postecoglou way. His team's not. I know there's talk about people kind of wanting him out, but whoever comes in is just going to have to deal with all of this rubbish. There's no, you'd have to bring in a magician. You really would, to come in. And I mean, I've heard of Graham Potter. You need Harry Potter to come in right now, wouldn't you, really, and fix these kind of problems, because it doesn't matter who you've got. If you've only got one fit centre-back, essentially now they've lost 4 of their back line, their first choice back line. It's just crazy. And players that really do allow them to play the system in the way it's meant to be played, with the high line and all of that as well. So I do feel for him, but the results, ultimately, that's all people are going to look at. They're not going to look at the fact that there could be 10 players missing this weekend. They're not going to look at the fact that he's been playing an 18-year-old midfielder in central defence, and is going to have to do that against the likes of Isak, Salah over the next few days, and people like that. And the results over the course of 2024 weren't good enough overall when you look across it. I mean, you could certainly look at it and say, in the post-Harry Kane era, finishing 5th in the first season was fine. That was great. That was an improvement on the previous season. But if you take it as a whole, everything is kind of having to deal with, I know it's a rebuild and it's now going to be painful and messy, but those in, I was about to say those in charge, you would hope they'd understand something of the mess that's currently they're having to try and fix. It as partly because of Postecoglou, the hamstring stuff is certainly something that follows him around to clubs, but a lot of these have been very unfortunate injuries as well. There's been some contact injuries. There's been stupid decisions made that have got people suspended. There have been, loads of little problems. I think the Udogie one, I don't think Udogie is certainly what the suggestions are, that I don't think anything from the player and his camp are blaming that at Ange's door, putting it there. That it's more just unfortunate. He kind of went for it was like an unused run. I think he went past, I think it was Sonny, went down the left and the ball didn't get to him, so he kind of stopped. And I think it was in that moment that he stopped that he did something to his hamstring. But yeah, overall, the results aren't good enough. And there's been, I think for me, probably, I know the away form hasn't been great. I've probably been more disappointed with the amount of times they've gone behind at home. It's like, and I know this was pre-Postecoglou as well. We used to talk about this with Conte. I think I saw a stat. I don't know if it was right or not. I'm just clearly going to say it anyway. Where I think it was 15 games at home in 2024 where they went 1-0 down.
Probably sounds about right.
Yeah,
it just seems to be every home game.
Yeah,
pretty
and
much.
That's dreadful. That's regardless of who you've got available. That's dreadful at home. So yeah, I just worry. My worry for Postecoglou is that the lack of numbers are just not going to allow him to fix everything in time. That's my only issue, is that I think there's an understanding right now about the situation, but how long can you remain? I don't know. How long can you remain patient and understand as a club about the rebuild element? I just fear if they start all over again, it'd be rubbish. I don't know if I've got the energy to do these again, where we're talking about another new manager trying to fix Tottenham.
Yeah, need to get results this week, really, because you've got Newcastle at home, who are flying at the moment. They're pushing for Champions League football. Tamworth away. Surely there's not going to be a cup shock there.
We got Liverpool first, haven't we?
And yeah, Liverpool in between those games on home soil. Hopefully, can get a positive result. But then it's the North London derby, and you can't be going into that game.
This is what I mean.
You know, being pumped by a couple of teams before that.
Yeah.
Because Spurs don't usually perform well at the Emirates. Got a 2-2 draw there last season. Again, that just seems like an absolute lifetime ago now.
Yeah.
So there's all that positivity at the time. Spurs, you know, looking to challenge towards the top of the league, and then you're going to go there. Arsenal having one eye on the title, they'll want to inflict even more misery on Tottenham the way it's going at the moment. I think these next 3 or 4 games are going to be key.
I think they could end up deciding what happens next. I think you're spot on, because I think there's a lot probably riding on the fact that there's still the potential of cups or cup this season. And I think if that starts to edge away, then the league stuff can't be kind of just put to one side. And I do feel for him. I think he's been more compromised as a manager than any Spurs manager I can remember in recent memory. I know Mourinho there was a little period where he had some kind of injuries that were an issue. I remember that we spoke about before, Steven Bergwijn playing up front as the striker at Stamford Bridge, and a back 5 that were all centre backs, I think, or something like that. But Postecoglou's just had it constant. It's like just being punched all over. It's like a boxer that's walked in a ring and been punched from all sides. But I just worry about this little period. Those 3 games especially. Just Newcastle, Liverpool, and Arsenal. It's just the worst time to play them. It really is, and I think the problem is the fans will grow. I don't think fans will continue to use or see the excuse or reasoning or context, whatever you want, of the injuries. I think if you are getting beaten, and you're getting beaten, by your rivals in the North London derby as well, I think the fans then start to turn, and I think that becomes the issue. And it's just such a shame. It'd just be another thing cut off at the knees before it's even got running, really.
Yeah, well, hopefully before then, there'll be a couple of players returning from injury. Fingers crossed, a couple of players coming in through the door to help boost the numbers.
Isn't it?
Yeah, but this is Tottenham, so
who knows this is a problem. And is that an element of potential loan signings as well? Is that if they did decide to go for a change of manager, a loan signing doesn't have to be kept around. It's kind of like, we're kind of backing you, but we're also hedging our bets.
Yeah, very much so. You were at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last Sunday for the 2-2 draw against Wolves. Spurs got themselves in a decent position, 2-1 up, and then Strand Larsen scored a really well taken goal. Final few minutes of the game means Spurs' run without a win continues. Wolves unbeaten in the last 3 under Pereira, the new head coach. That really was a game they probably should have got 3 points from. Then that's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think they played that badly. I thought they played fine. I think they did enough to win that game, other than just put the ball in the net a 3rd time, which, I think ordinarily you'd say, well, that shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't have to score 3. But when you've got a defence like they did, and you could see that Dragoshan wasn't 100%. I mean, Postecoglou admitted that afterwards. They just kind of had to patch him up and put him out there, and he wanted to play. But up front, there were so many occasions in that second half when, like, Solanke or Kulusevski would run up the pitch, and it would be a break where any other point in the season or with fresher players, they would have probably gone on and put the ball in the net, and they just ran out of legs. There was one where Kulusevski was pretty much falling over his own feet. There was another one where Solanke kind of like surprised himself almost that he got all the way into the box, and then by the time he got the energy to take the shot, he was tackled as he went to take it. And yeah, they've done well to get back into the game. Good Bentancur header. Johnson's goal with lovely interplay with Kulusevski as well. Also had a Sonny penalty that was saved as well. So yeah, it's a game where I feel they did enough. They just looked like a knackered team towards the end. The irony is kind of people wanting Postecoglou to tell his players, just hang on, just get the result. It's kind of what they were having to do in the second half, because they were so knackered. They were just sitting back, and that was allowing Wolves to have a lot of the ball. But yeah, it just took one moment. I think Archie Gray, who'd been really good for most of the game, just a tired decision, just switched off. Larson got in behind him. He played him onside as well, all in the same moment. And I think it was a good finish. Although if I'm a goalkeeper, I'm not wanting to get beaten at my near post like that. Forster kind of flapped at it a bit, I feel. But yeah, definitely a game they should have won. Wolves had their own injuries as well over the course of the game. So yeah, they should have seen it out and won. And it just was one of those that felt like a defeat rather than a draw.
Yeah, and I think one positive you can take going into the Newcastle game is the fact that Spurs are having a 6-day break between the games, because that's not been the case since between the Everton and Newcastle games at the end of August. It has literally been relentless. It's a game every 3 or 4 days. It's just no time at all to really train properly, and then give your players a bit of time off as well.
Yeah.
Because I suppose after the games, you're having a recovery session.
Yeah.
And then you're having one full day maybe to prepare for games. That's what Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham wanted going into this season, the return of European football. But when you've got limited numbers, it is just punishing. And it's caused Tottenham a whole host of problems recently.
Well, that's the irony, isn't it? You're spot on. If the season had been switched around, the seasons, and this season was the one Spurs didn't have European football in, and it was his second season, they probably would have been doing really well because all those players were in fresh and his philosophy would have been in, there'd be less injuries. It's a really weird way it's worked. One player who is going to be fresh is Rodrigo Bentancur, who I don't think I've seen a more stupid challenge to make than, I've seen some dumb challenges, but when you're on 4 yellow cards, you've just had a 7-game suspension you've come back from. It's the 97th minute of the game. All you've got to do is get through another 2 minutes or so, and then your yellow cards are wiped out. And at that point, you think, yeah, I'm going to lunge in here. It's like, oh my, you could see the moment he did it, he like smashed the ground in frustration because he knew. And this is one of my kind of, I guess, bugbears about this season in a way, about senior players. And I do feel like Postecoglou has been stuffed by some of his senior players this season. I mean, whether it's just more unfortunate stuff like Sonny just being out of form, losing a bit of confidence as his captain, whether it's Romero being injured, and coming back and getting injured again. Maddison's done well in periods, but I think he's also been a little bit inconsistent at others. But then when you've got players like Bentancur and Bissouma, who are doing their very best this season to essentially rule themselves out of matches. They both had 2 utterly stupid suspensions of their own making where they did or said things that didn't need to be said or did. And Bentancur now doing this, and Bissouma got 5 yellow cards as well, didn't he?
He did. The 5th one was Chelsea, where he gave away the penalty. And you were talking about stupid decisions, stupid fouls. Yeah. There you go, prime example.
Yeah. So that's 2 players. I think Bentancur's 27, Bissouma's 28. I think they're in that hub of the team where they're meant to be almost like the leader of what's going on there in the middle of the pitch. And they're both just making some really, really stupid decisions. And that's, for me, is why they need another number 6, because as great as those guys can be in moments, and we saw Bentancur, I was hoping he'd kind of go on a good run. And I actually thought he was okay on Sunday, that tackle aside. But you just need players you can trust. And I do feel like they just make some stupid decisions, the 2 of those players, for all of the ability they've got.
So what are we thinking for the midfield 3 then?
You and me, I think, at this rate.
So you're taking your boots on Saturday, just in case?
I think we'll have to. Yeah, I think I will. Yeah.
Because I watched Newcastle the other day against Manchester United, and they were brilliant. They should have been about 3 or 4 goals clear at half-time, and the midfield 3 of Joe Linton, Sandro Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes, fantastic. United just couldn't deal with them, and that's why they had to make that change early on, bring Kobbie Mainoo to try and shore things up. Spurs are going to have a challenge coming up against those 3, so I imagine Sar's going to come back in, having a bit of a breather against Wolves with Bentancur now being out. Bissouma will start, and then what we thinking? One of Maddison or Decky? Madder's not started the past 2 games, has he?
I think Maddison comes in. I think so. And then you put Decky on the right, probably. It's difficult because Johnson scored again. But I think, probably you need more ball winners. The only thing I would say is that Johnson kind of has this reputation as someone that isn't good defensively, but actually probably tracks back more than anyone else does on those wings. I'd probably go for that. I think I must admit this is kind of how desperate I've become. I was watching the Newcastle United game, and I'd written an article going in, just one of those little ones that you kind of bash out on what can happen in permutations. And Tonali and Shaw were both on 4 yellow cards, and it was their 19th game, and it was like, probably Tonali was the more important one, and it was Shaw that got his 5th yellow card, so he's suspended. But yeah, Tonali is absolutely fine to play and has his yellow cards wiped out entirely. So he's very good. Yeah, I'd go for that. I think Bissouma, Sarr, and Maddison. And I think because when they played at St James's Park, Spurs, it was one of those really annoying games where they actually played really well and should have won the game.
I think if they had Solanke in the team that day, they'd have won. But it was Sonny through the middle.
It was, it's quite right. Who was midfield that day? Can you remember? I feel like it was those 3.
Probably was, yeah.
Yeah, but that's who I'd probably go for. And then, do you think Sonny starts again?
For me, Son shouldn't be in the team at the moment. His performances haven't been good enough, and I think he does need a breather. But with a 6-day break between the games, I think he starts, and probably will be Brennan Johnson who drops out if there's going to be a change in that front 3, I think. And then defence just picks itself at the minute. Jed Spence coming in at left back, Radu and Archie at centre back.
Yeah, it was Bissouma, Maddison and Sarr that started in the midfield at Newcastle. Do you remember who was the other attacking player?
Wilson Odebear.
It was. Absolutely was. Yeah, this has Kulusevski as the man through the middle on the day. I don't think he was, though. I can't remember now.
Did he? I can't remember.
No, I can't remember. Dragishin did actually play that day.
Alongside Romero?
He did, yeah.
Yes, Mickey got an injury against Everton a week before, I think.
Everton, just what a team. I'm just looking at that team and just how that defence is going to look so different. There's only technically 2 of the 4. 2 of the 5, if you're including Vicario, are going to be there. Well, who knows? There's another couple of days before the game. Anything can happen. I am disappointed in a way that they haven't brought someone else in though. In ahead of this game, Jan Min-hyuk, do you think he'll be on the bench?
I don't know on that. I suppose he officially became a Tottenham player yesterday, New Year's Day. So it's how much training time has he had? You've got to let him adapt to the new surroundings. I don't know. Maybe he comes in at Tamworth in the squad.
Yeah.
But I mean, Spurs at the moment, they're absolutely desperate for players, but you've had a few of the youngsters coming in and taking the place on the bench, such as Callum Olasese recently, Will Lancashire, Alfie Dorrington. I don't know. I really don't know. I think fans probably will want him to be on the bench because it's a new signing. But I suppose in terms of potential new signings, Spurs will have until midday on Friday to register new signings for this weekend's game. So, just under 24 hours to go now.
Yeah, it's not looking likely, is it, at this point? With Yang, I think he might be on the bench in terms of numbers. Because whether Mikey Moore, let's say, is ready to be put on the bench, it might be too soon. Who knows?
And there's Richarlison as well.
Yeah, Richarlison as well. But with Yang, I guess he's going to be fit. There's been a lot coming out of the club about just being very cautious with him. He's 18 years old, coming from a very different level of football, league, culture, everything. I think it's a lot to throw at him. But hey, chuck him on for the last 5 minutes and just as an attacking player, who knows, kind of thing. But I would be I'd be surprised if we see him starting in the Premier League for a while. But hey, it's all part of the adaptation, I guess.
It is. Right, we'll leave that there for today's latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham. We'll be back next week to reflect on hopefully a positive result against Newcastle, and then also preview the Carabao Cup semi-final home tie against Liverpool. In the meantime, just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/gold guest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on this 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.